Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper, where lost truths, ancient mysteries, and forbidden history collide. Let's question the past and uncover what was never meant to be found. The human body is a complex ecosystem, but it is meant to be a closed one. Yet, medical records contain shocking cases of complex organisms, insects, fish, and even plants found alive in places they should never be, defying biological explanation. The human body, for all its resilience and complexity, is a fortress under constant siege. Our immune system is a sophisticated and vigilant defense network, designed to identify, attack, and annihilate any foreign invaders, from microscopic viruses and bacteria to larger parasites. The boundaries of our physical selves, our skin, our respiratory passages, our digestive tract, are the front lines in a perpetual war against the outside world. Yet, despite these formidable defenses, medical history is filled with astonishing and deeply unsettling cases where these defenses are breached in the most bizarre and unexpected ways. These are not the familiar stories of microbial infection or common parasitic worms. These are the anomalous, almost unbelievable accounts of complex, multicellular organisms, insects, and even plants being found alive, and sometimes actively growing, in the most inhospitable and unlikely of places, the human respiratory system and the cranial cavity. These cases, while exceptionally rare, challenge our understanding of biology and force us to confront the terrifying reality that the border between our internal world and the external one is not as impermeable as we might think. One of the most well-documented and viscerally disturbing of these phenomena is a condition known as myiasis. The term, derived from the Greek word maia for fly, refers to the infestation of a live vertebrate animal, including humans, with the larvae of a fly. While there are many types of myiasis, affecting different parts of the body, the cases involving the airways and the head are by far the most alarming. The most infamous culprit in the Americas is the human botfly Dermatobia hominis. This insect has a reproductive strategy that is as ingenious as it is horrifying. The adult female botfly does not lay her eggs directly on a human host. Instead, she captures another blood-sucking insect, like a mosquito or a tick, and attaches her eggs to its body. When this unwitting vector lands on a human to feed, the warmth of the host's body triggers the botfly eggs to hatch. The tiny larvae then drop onto the skin and burrow into the host, either through the bite wound or directly into a hair follicle. While the most common form of botfly infestation is cutaneous, with the larva developing in a painful boil-like lesion under the skin, a far more dangerous situation arises when the eggs are deposited near the nose, eyes, or ears. This can lead to nasal, ophthalmic, or oral myiasis. In cases of nasal myiasis, the newly hatched larva can crawl into the nasal passages. Here, in the warm, moist, and protected environment of the sinuses, the larva can thrive. It uses its powerful hook-like mouthparts to anchor itself to the mucosal tissue, feeding on the host's flesh and fluids. As it grows, it can cause a range of distressing symptoms, including intense pain, a foul-smelling nasal discharge, and a persistent, deeply unsettling feeling of movement within the head. The psychological trauma of knowing that a living creature is burrowing through the inside of your face is often as severe as the physical symptoms. The real danger of nasal myiasis lies in the larva's potential to migrate. While most remain localized in the sinuses, some have been documented to burrow deeper, eroding the delicate bones of the nasal cavity and, in the most extreme and terrifying cases, penetrating the cribriform plate, the thin, perforated bone that separates the nasal cavity from the brain. Once inside the cranial cavity, the larva can cause devastating damage, leading to meningitis, brain abscesses, and almost certain death if not treated. The successful removal of a live botfly larva from a patient's sinuses is a delicate and often difficult procedure, requiring skilled surgeons to extract the creature without leaving any parts behind. Each case is a stark reminder of the body's vulnerability to invasion by a creature that has evolved a specific and terrifying strategy for exploiting our internal environment. While meiosis is a case of an animal actively adapted to invade a host, there are other, even stranger cases where organisms with no such adaptations are found in the respiratory tract. These are the biological absurdities, the events that seem to defy all logical explanation. One of the most famous and well-documented of these is the Siberian fir tree case from 2009. A 28-year-old Russian man named Artyom Sidorkin went to the hospital in the city of Izhevsk, complaining of severe chest pain and coughing up blood. Doctors, suspecting lung cancer, performed a biopsy. As the surgeon inserted the endoscope into the man's lung, he was prepared to see a malignant tumor. Instead, to his absolute astonishment, he saw what appeared to be a small, perfectly formed tree sapling, about 2 inches (5 centimeters) long, growing within the lung tissue. The surgical team, in a state of disbelief, proceeded to remove the foreign object. What they extracted was unmistakably a young fir tree, complete with green needles. The case became an international media sensation, a medical marvel that seemed to have been lifted from the pages of a fairy tale. The initial reaction from many in the scientific community was one of deep skepticism, with many assuming it was a hoax or a misinterpretation. However, the Russian medical team stood by their findings, providing photographic evidence of the sapling both before and after its removal. The prevailing scientific theory to explain this impossible growth is that Mr. Sidorkin had, at some point, inhaled a dormant fir seed. This is not as far-fetched as it sounds. People working in forests or rural areas can easily inhale small particles of organic matter. A tiny seed could have become lodged in a bronchiole, a small airway deep within the lung. The lung provides an almost perfect environment for germination. It is warm, constantly moist, and the lung tissue itself could provide a source of nutrients. The seed, protected from the body's immediate immune response by a layer of mucus or tissue, could have then sprouted, beginning to grow in this bizarre and unnatural incubator. The sharp needles of the growing sapling would have irritated the surrounding lung tissue, causing the pain and bleeding that eventually led the man to seek medical help. While this is the most plausible explanation, the case remains a profound biological anomaly. It represents a 1 in a billion chance, a perfect storm of unlikely events that allowed a plant to take root and grow in a place where it had absolutely no business being. These cases, both the parasitic invasions of meiosis and the botanical absurdity of a lung-dwelling tree, highlight a fundamental scientific puzzle: the question of survival against the human immune system. Our bodies are not passive environments. The immune system is a powerful and highly aggressive defense force, with a complex arsenal of weapons designed to identify and destroy anything it recognizes as non-self. When a foreign object, like a splinter or a bacterium, enters the body, a rapid and powerful inflammatory response is triggered. White blood cells, such as macrophages and neutrophils, are dispatched to the site to engulf and digest the invaders. The complement system, a cascade of blood proteins, can directly attack and destroy foreign cells. For larger invaders like a botfly larva, the body will attempt to encapsulate the object in a fibrous capsule of scar tissue, a process called foreign body granuloma, in an effort to wall it off and neutralize it. So, how do these living anomalies manage to survive this relentless assault? Parasites like the botfly have, over millions of years of coevolution with their hosts, developed a sophisticated array of countermeasures. Their outer cuticle is tough and resistant to the host's digestive enzymes. More importantly, they engage in a form of chemical warfare. The larvae secrete substances that actively suppress the host's immune response in their immediate vicinity. These molecules can inhibit the function of white blood cells, block the inflammatory cascade, and essentially create a small localized ceasefire zone that allows them to feed and grow without being destroyed. They create a biochemical invisibility cloak, tricking the host's body into tolerating their presence, at least for a time. The study of these immunomodulatory substances is a major field of research, as understanding how parasites manipulate our immune system could lead to new treatments for autoimmune diseases and other conditions. The case of the fir tree is even more puzzling from an immunological perspective. A plant seed does not possess the sophisticated, co-evolved defense mechanisms of a parasite. How did it manage to evade the immune system for long enough to germinate? The answer may lie in its inertness. A dormant seed is a self-contained biological package, with a tough outer coat that is chemically stable, and may not have initially triggered a strong immune reaction. It may have become embedded in the lung tissue and quickly encapsulated by a thin layer of mucus or fibrin, effectively hiding it from the body's immune patrols. It was only when the seed germinated and the growing plant began to actively interact with and damage the surrounding tissue that the immune system would have mounted a full-scale inflammatory response, leading to the symptoms that were observed. These cases, while rare, are more than just medical horror stories. They are extreme and fascinating examples of the tenacity of life and the complex, ongoing battle between organisms and their environments, even when that environment is the inside of another living creature. They force us to confront the vulnerabilities of our own bodies, demonstrating that our internal ecosystem is not as securely sealed as we might imagine. The airways, designed to bring the vital gift of oxygen into our bodies, can also serve as an unwitting gateway for the most unwanted of guests. Each case, whether it is a burrowing larva or a sprouting seed, is a profound biological anomaly, a statistical improbability that serves as a humbling reminder of the strange and often terrifying ways in which the boundaries of life can be blurred. While the respiratory tract represents an unexpected and terrifying gateway for biological invaders, the gastrointestinal system is a far more common and well-understood theater of war between host and organism. The human gut, a long and complex tube running through our bodies, is a world unto itself, an ecosystem teeming with trillions of microorganisms that are essential to our survival. It is also the primary route of entry for a host of parasitic organisms that have, over millennia of coevolution, perfected the art of living within us. The story of intestinal parasites like tapeworms, roundworms, and flukes is a familiar, if unsettling, chapter in medical biology. These are creatures that are exquisitely adapted to survive the harsh, acidic, and low-oxygen environment of our digestive tract. However, the annals of medicine also contain a collection of far stranger and more baffling cases, reports of complex, non-parasitic organisms, creatures like fish being found alive in the human digestive system, and even the urinary tract. These cases push the boundaries of credulity and challenge our fundamental understanding of what is biologically possible, creating a clear distinction between the known science of parasitology and the almost unbelievable world of living anomalies. To appreciate the strangeness of these anomalous cases, it is first necessary to understand the incredible adaptations of true intestinal parasites. Organisms like the beef tapeworm, Taenia saginata, are masterpieces of evolutionary engineering. A human becomes infected by eating undercooked beef containing a larval cyst. Once inside the human intestine, the larva hatches and the tapeworm attaches its head or scolex, which is equipped with powerful suckers, to the intestinal wall. From there it begins to grow, absorbing predigested nutrients directly through its skin. The tapeworm has no digestive system of its own. It simply lives in a perfect nutrient-rich soup. It is also a hermaphrodite, capable of self-fertilization, and its body is composed of a long chain of segments called proglottids, each of which is essentially a self-contained egg factory. These egg-filled segments break off and are passed out in the host's feces, ready to be consumed by a cow to continue the cycle. The tapeworm's adaptations are profound. A specialized attachment organ, the ability to absorb nutrients without a gut, and a reproductive strategy that is perfectly tuned to its two-host life cycle. These are creatures that belong in our gut. They have evolved over millions of years to be there. The anomalous cases, however, involve creatures that have absolutely no such adaptations. These are organisms that have entered the human body by accident, often through bizarre and unfortunate circumstances, and have somehow managed to survive, at least for a time, in an environment that should be instantly lethal to them. One of the most famous and well-documented of these is the Indian fishman case, a story that has been cited in medical literature and has become a classic example of a living foreign body. The case involved a young boy in India who reportedly, on a dare from his friends, swallowed a small live fish, a common practice in some rural areas. Instead of passing through his digestive tract, the fish, in its struggles, managed to lodge itself in his pharynx and was then accidentally inhaled into his windpipe or trachea. From there, it traveled down into his bronchial tubes. Weeks later, the boy developed severe respiratory distress and was taken to a hospital. Doctors, performing a bronchoscopy, were astonished to find the fish still alive lodged in his lung. They were able to successfully remove the creature, which was identified as a type of small local freshwater fish. This case, while incredible, has a plausible, if extraordinary, biological explanation. The lung, unlike the stomach, is not a digestive organ. A far more extreme and biologically perplexing set of cases involves the reported survival of fish within the human gastrointestinal or urinary tracts. While many of these are folkloric or poorly documented, some have appeared in medical journals. One such case reported a man who, while bathing in a river, had a tiny species of fish, known for its ability to swim into small orifices, enter his urethra. The fish then allegedly made its way into his bladder, where it was later removed, still alive, by surgeons. Another set of stories, more common in historical texts, involves people swallowing fish eggs, which then supposedly hatch and grow within the stomach. These cases present a much greater scientific puzzle than the lung-dwelling fish. The greatest and most immediate challenge for any aquatic, gill-breathing organism inside the digestive tract or the bladder is the almost complete lack of free oxygen. The stomach and intestines are anaerobic environments, filled with digestive juices and bacteria that consume any available oxygen. The bladder is a sterile container for urine, a liquid that contains very little dissolved oxygen. A fish's gills are incredibly efficient at extracting the small amounts of oxygen dissolved in water, but they are completely useless in an environment with no oxygen to extract. How could a creature like a fish, whose entire respiratory system is designed for an oxygen-rich aquatic life, survive for any length of time in these anoxic conditions? The biological hurdles do not stop there. The human stomach is a cauldron of hydrochloric acid, a substance with a pH between 1.5 and 3.5, comparable to the strength of battery acid. This environment is designed to break down and denature proteins, the very building blocks of life. Any complex organism, like a fish or its eggs, that is not specifically adapted to survive this acidic bath should be digested and destroyed in a matter of hours, if not minutes. Even if a creature could somehow survive the stomach, the intestines present their own set of challenges, including powerful digestive enzymes and a host of bacteria that would attack any foreign organism. Given these seemingly insurmountable biological barriers, the majority of these reports are viewed with extreme skepticism by the scientific community. They are often relegated to the category of medical myths or hoaxes. It is possible that some cases involve a misinterpretation of the facts. A patient might swallow a fish, and then later pass a parasitic worm that they mistake for the fish. In other cases, the story may be a complete fabrication. However, the persistence of these accounts in both folklore and some medical literature raises the question: is there any plausible, though perhaps extreme, biological scenario that could account for such an anomaly? One highly speculative possibility is that a fish could enter a state of extreme suspended animation or torpor, dramatically reducing its metabolic rate and its need for oxygen to almost zero. If this were combined with an unusual physiological state in the host, such as achlorhydria, a condition where the stomach produces no acid, it is conceivable, though astronomically unlikely, that a very small, hardy organism could survive for a brief period. Another possibility is that the stories do not involve the survival of an adult fish, but the hatching of ingested eggs. While fish eggs are more resistant than adult fish, they would still face the same challenges of acid and lack of oxygen. The idea that they could hatch and that the tiny fry could then survive and grow in the human gut pushes the boundaries of biological possibility to the breaking point. Ultimately, the stories of creatures like fish surviving in the human gut or bladder remain firmly in the borderlands between established science and unexplained anomaly. Unlike the cases of meiosis or even the lung-dwelling fir tree, they lack a clear and plausible biological mechanism. They stand in stark contrast to the well-understood world of true parasites, which have spent millions of years evolving the specific tools needed to thrive within us. These anomalous cases are a fascinating and unsettling reminder that the natural world is full of bizarre and improbable events. They are medical mysteries that challenge our assumptions about the limits of survival and the inviolability of our own internal environment. Whether they are true biological rarities or elaborate medical myths, they speak to a deep-seated human fascination and fear with the idea of being invaded from within, a fear that is made all the more potent when the invader is not a specialized parasite, but an ordinary creature from the outside world that has somehow found a way to survive in a place where, by all the laws of biology, it should not be. Beyond the invasive dramas of the respiratory and digestive systems, the human body offers other, equally strange havens for unwanted living guests. The borderlands of our anatomy, the protected but not sealed cavities of our head, and the external sensory organs like our ears can become accidental prisons for creatures that have wandered in from the outside world. These cases of foreign bodies that happen to be alive represent a unique category of medical anomaly. They often involve common, everyday insects, and their survival is less a matter of complex biological adaptation and more one of sheer, improbable chance. Yet, these encounters are often the most psychologically disturbing, tapping into a primal fear of invasion and contamination. They highlight the precarious nature of our physical boundaries and the profound medical and psychological impact that comes from the realization that one is unwillingly playing host to another living organism. One of the most horrifying and anatomically extreme examples of this phenomenon occurred in 2017 in Chennai, India. A 42-year-old woman named Selvi went to a local hospital with a strange and terrifying complaint. She had been woken from her sleep by an intense, crawling and tickling sensation deep inside her head, behind her eyes. The feeling was accompanied by a burning pain and difficulty breathing. Doctors initially suspected a neurological issue or an allergic reaction. However, when a standard examination revealed nothing, they performed a nasal endoscopy, inserting a small, flexible camera up through her nostrils to examine her nasal cavity and sinuses. What they found was the stuff of nightmares. Huddled deep within her nasal cavity, at the very base of her skull between her two eyes, was a large live cockroach. The insect had apparently crawled up the woman's nose while she was sleeping and had navigated its way deep into her sinus passages, a journey of several inches, until it could go no further. It was trapped alive and struggling in one of the most sensitive and inaccessible parts of the human head. The medical team was faced with the delicate and stomach-churning task of extracting the creature. Using a combination of suction and forceps, they were able to carefully pull the still-living cockroach out through her nostril. The case made international headlines, a visceral and unforgettable illustration of the body's vulnerability. The cockroach's survival was a testament to its incredible hardiness. These insects can survive for long periods with little oxygen and are masters of squeezing through tight spaces. For the patient, however, the experience was one of profound physical and psychological trauma. A more common, though no less terrifying, anomaly is the survival of insects, particularly spiders and cockroaches, inside the human ear canal. The insect's ability to survive in this environment is remarkable. The ear canal is not a passive tube. It is protected by the body's defenses, primarily the production of cerumen or earwax. This waxy substance is designed to trap dust, debris, and foreign objects, and its slightly acidic nature has antibacterial properties. An insect trapped in the ear canal must contend with being slowly engulfed in this sticky, protective substance. Yet, many are found alive, sometimes days after they entered, having survived the body's attempts to dislodge them. The removal of these creatures is a common procedure in emergency rooms, but one that always leaves a lasting impression on both the doctor and the patient. These bizarre medical cases, whether it is a cockroach at the base of the skull or a spider in the ear canal, have a profound and lasting psychological impact. The experience of having a living, multi-limbed creature moving inside your body is a violation of our most fundamental sense of self and physical integrity. It taps into a deep, primal fear of contamination and invasion. Patients often report feelings of revulsion, anxiety, and a persistent phantom crawling sensation long after the object has been removed. The psychological trauma can be as significant as any physical damage. These cases also push the boundaries of medicine. They require doctors to be more than just clinicians. They must become, in a sense, biological detectives and even exterminators, using their medical tools and knowledge to deal with situations that are far outside the scope of their normal training. These incidents, while biologically less complex than a parasitic infection, are a powerful reminder that the border between our bodies and the world around us is a constantly negotiated one, and that sometimes, the most mundane creatures can breach our defenses in the most extraordinary and terrifying ways. These bizarre medical cases are not just horror stories. They are extreme examples of life's tenacity, and a humbling reminder that the boundaries of our own bodies are not as impenetrable as we might like to believe. Thanks for exploring with Ancient Relics Keeper. Stay curious, question everything, and remember the truth is often buried deeper than we think.